The Action 3 has definitely been one of those cameras that has tested my patience, because once I got it and then it was past the 14 days, I couldn't return it even though I had an issue and it was basically faulty. So DJI sent me a replacement, I sent mine back, they sent me a replacement, got the second one and it was still faulty. And even though I got back in touch with them pretty much straight away, they still wouldn't give me a refund. And so they took that one back and they were sending me a replacement for that. And then there was this whole mess up at customs where I had to then pay a £75 customs charge, which I didn't pay. I got in touch with DJI and then within, I guess, like 10 days, it was finally sorted out. So I got the Action 3 back, and honestly, even though it has been such a pain in the arse, it was well worth waiting for. When I got it out of the box, I didn't really bother going to test it without doing the firmware update first, because I just thought there's absolutely no point. I'm not really interested to see what it looks like before the firmware update anyway. And if the focusing issue wasn't fixed even before me updating the firmware, then it wasn't going to make a difference. So anyway, I updated to the latest firmware, which gives you 10-bit in D-Cine-like, and what a difference. So in terms of the firmware update, you get 10-bit D-Cine-like, which is the 10-bit that we've all been waiting for. And then there's also a feature called enhanced image quality. So I tried this and I didn't really see a massive difference between having it on and having it off. And that might just have been because of, I don't know, the environment that I was in, but I basically compared it side by side and I didn't really see a massive difference. If I'm looking really, really closely, it looks a little bit softer if the enhanced image quality isn't on versus it being on. But honestly, it's so marginal, I really can't see a massive difference between the two. So the other feature that was implemented was a narrow field of view, but you can't get this in 4K, you can only get it in 2.7K and 1080, but honestly, it looks garbage, so I wouldn't even use it, to be fair. It just, yeah, there's absolutely no point. Standard looks great now, so there's no focusing issue that I've got, but just avoid narrow because it just doesn't look very good. And then the other thing is Rocksteady Plus. So again, tried this out, tried it against having image stabilization off and then just having Rocksteady, but there's not much of a difference. And I guess it really depends on what you're doing, because I tried walking and I tried running a little bit, but I didn't see a difference between Rocksteady Plus and Rocksteady. But depending on if you're doing something which has more like a higher intensity sport or something like that, then you might see a difference. But if you're just going to be vlogging, I really don't see that you're going to need Rocksteady Plus. It also crops in more than Rocksteady, so it crops in more like horizon balancing. So yeah, if you're just going to be vlogging, Rocksteady works perfectly, it's still fine. So Rocksteady Plus, try it out if you're going to be doing like really high intensity activity where you're going to be shaking the camera more, but otherwise there's not really much of a difference that I could see. And then also there is HDR. I haven't tried that yet, so let me just put up a clip of before and after so that you can see the difference, but at this point I don't know whether that makes much of a difference or how the footage looks, so we'll see. So as I said, overall, the image quality is night and day from the first unit that I got and even the second unit that I got. The quality of the footage is so much better. Whatever they've done, they've really fixed it. They've really sorted it out. So good job, DJI. And what I will say is that 10-bit does actually make a difference, especially when you're color correcting and color grading the D-Cine-like footage. It's just, you can just push it a lot more and you don't get any weird artifacts or like banding in the sky or anything like that. It just looks so much better. And in terms of shooting in normal versus D-Cine-like, normal footage actually looks really good. So you don't necessarily have to shoot in D-Cine-like, but if you want to kind of get a certain look for your footage, then you will want to use DCine if you want to color grade. But if you just want to use the footage straight out the camera and you just want to upload it as soon as you've shot something, shooting in normal is going to be fine. The footage actually looks really good. What I will say though is if it's a really bright day and the sun is basically shining on you, you want to shoot at -1 EV, because if you shoot at 0 EV, it's just going to blow out your highlights in your face, or yeah, basically you. So I found that shooting at -1 EV works really well. But if you're going to shoot in DCine and shoot in auto exposure, then you don't necessarily need to shoot in -1 EV, because you can bring the highlights back a little bit in post. So with that, I would just shoot at 0 EV if you're shooting in auto exposure in DCine. So in terms of the 10-bit update and comparing 10-bit footage between the Action 3 and the Hero 11, they're very similar. I mean, looking at the footage, the Hero 11 and the Action 3 footage looks so similar now. There's not this massive gap between quality. The quality of the Action 3 is just amazing now. And so it's really close to the Hero 11. When I was color correcting, color grading the DCine footage and then flat footage from the Hero 11, I did find that the Hero 11 was easier to color correct and color grade, but that's only because I use Film Convert, and Film Convert have a camera pack for the Hero 10, which I used for the Hero 11 because they're very similar, and I just find it really easy to color correct and color grade the footage from the Hero 11. However, with DCine, it's still, because I created LUTs for DCine, color correcting the DCine footage was easy, but then just trying to get a look that doesn't look really kind of artificial when you shoot in DCine is, I find it a little bit more difficult. Maybe that's just me, because I feel like DCine on the Pocket 2 was a lot easier to color correct and color grade, and if you just color correct it, the footage just looks great without having to color grade it at all. So I would say that in that instance, for me, and just because of Film Convert Nitrate, the Hero 11 I find easier to color correct and color grade. But in terms of usability, I would say that the Action 3 is easier because you don't have to have a media mod if you want to attach an external microphone. You can just take the side door off and attach a USB microphone. And also, if you wanted to use a gimbal because you were shooting in low light or because you wanted to use ND filters, then the Hohem iSteady Pro 4 is a really small splash-proof gimbal, so you can't use the media mod on that gimbal. But if you use the Action 3, it doesn't matter, you'd still be able to use an external microphone because you can just attach it to the camera and it will still work with the gimbal, whereas with the Hero 11 you can't use the Hohem iSteady Pro 4 gimbal with the media mod because it doesn't fit. So you kind of have to decide between using the audio straight from the Hero 11, which sounds good anyway, or not using the gimbal and using the media mod. But I've got another video about that because I don't want to go to it in loads of detail in this video. So now that the Action 3's had this massive firmware update, there's no focusing issue, it is an awesome action camera and it is a real rival to the GoPro Hero 11. So you all are going to ask me which one would I actually prefer using, and even though I said earlier that with the Hero 11 it's easier to color grade and all that kind of stuff, it really just depends on the use case. So the Hero 11 for me fits into my workflow a lot better just because I film sometimes with my A7S III and I film with my Insta360 X3, and even though Film Convert don't have camera packs to match those two action cameras to my A7S III yet, they will have in future. So when that is the case, I will definitely be using the Hero 11 more when I'm using my A7S III, or just exclusively use it with my A7S III and X3, because I'll be able to get seamless footage between those three cameras when I'm using all three of them. However, if I'm literally just going out and I just want to vlog with a small camera, I don't want to take my A7S III, I don't want to take any of the cameras, I just want that camera, I would definitely go for the Action 3 because the footage just looks great, and when you shoot in normal the footage looks awesome, so you can just use the footage straight out the camera. So yeah, Hero 11 when I'm using my A7S III and other cameras, but if I'm just going out and I just want to take one camera with me, then I would definitely take the Action 3 because the colours are great and straight out the camera, everything looks perfect. So hopefully that was useful. Quick video, although I don't know how quick it is. I feel like I've talked a lot, but hopefully that gives you some insight and you can see how awesome the footage looks. So if you've been waiting to get the Action 3 until a point where everything looks great, then hopefully that has helped you to make your decision. And if so, do give the video a like and catch you guys on the next video where I'll talk about using a gimbal and ND filters and why you might want to use those for vlogging. So do subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you on the next video. One last thing, if you want to see a bit more comparison footage between the Action 3 and the Hero 11, I've linked a video in the description and also at the end of this video, so you can check it out. There's no talking, it's just literally side-by-side comparison of the footage.